The November rain hammered against the windows of Fort Bragg's reception hall, each drop a reminder of how out of place Sophia Hayes felt. She stood near the coat check, watching her family cluster around Ethan like moths to a flame. Her brother, resplendent in his dress blues, accepted congratulations with the easy confidence of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. Did you see the Joint Chiefs are attending? Their mother, Patricia, practically glowed with pride. General Morrison himself requested to present Ethan's Distinguished Service Cross. About time they recognized a real hero. Their father, Colonel James Hayes, Ritwarter boomed, his voice carrying across the polished floor. 4 generations of Hayes men in combat arms. That's a legacy. Sophia's fingers tightened around her plain black clutch. Inside was her own ID card, the one that said Department of Defense in bland letters, revealing nothing of the truth beneath. Sophie! Her cousin Marcus waved her over, already 3 drinks deep. Still pushing papers at the Pentagon? Something like that, she murmured, accepting a glass of champagne she didn't want. Must be nice having a cushy desk job while real soldiers like Ethan are out there in the sandbox. Marcus's laugh cut through her like shrapnel. Though I guess someone has to file the reports, right? The group erupted in laughter. Her Aunt Linda patted her shoulder with condescending sympathy. Don't feel bad, dear. Not everyone's cut out for the real thing. Your administrative work is important too. Sophia's phone vibrated. A secure message flashed briefly. Package delivered. Blackwater complete. Stand by for debrief Monday. D. She deleted it immediately. Muscle memory from 15 years of operating in shadows. Earth to Sophie. Ethan appeared beside her, his new medal gleaming under the harsh fluorescence. You spacing out again? Mom wants a family photo before the ceremony. I shouldn't be in it, Sophia said quietly. This is your night. Don't be ridiculous. But his tone was dismissive, already moving past her. Though maybe stand in the back. You know how Mom is about uniforms and photos. As he walked away, Sophia caught her reflection in a darkened window. A woman in a simple black dress, unremarkable and overlooked. Exactly as she needed to be. Exactly as she'd trained to be. The rain intensified, and somewhere in Langley, Virginia, analysts were reviewing the intelligence she'd risked everything to obtain. Intelligence that had saved American lives. Intelligence that had saved Ethan's life, though he'd never know it. Ladies and gentlemen, a voice announced over the speakers, please take your seats. The ceremony will begin in 10 minutes. Sophia made her way to the back row, settling into obscurity like an old friend. She'd spent her career in rooms like this, watching, analyzing, invisible. The family had their hero. They didn't need to know, they had to. Chapter 2. The Weight of Secrets. The auditorium filled quickly, a sea of dress uniforms and evening wear. Sophia observed from her corner seat, cataloging faces out of habit. She recognized several Pentagon officials, a handful of special operations commanders, and, her breath caught, Admiral Rebecca Chen from Naval Intelligence. Chen's eyes found hers across the room, a flicker of recognition quickly suppressed. Is this seat taken? An elderly woman in a navy blue dress gestured to the chair beside Sophia. Please. Sophia shifted her purse. The woman settled in with a grateful sigh. My grandson's receiving a Bronze Star tonight. I'm Helen Morrison. Morrison, as in General Morrison. Sophia kept her expression neutral. Congratulations to your grandson. These ceremonies never get easier. Helen's eyes misted, the pride mixed with the terror of what they survived to earn these medals. Do you have family serving? My brother. Sophia nodded toward the stage where Ethan stood with other recipients. The DSC recipient? My, that's quite an honor. You must be proud. I am. And she was, despite everything. Despite the bitter irony that the operation he was being decorated for had nearly failed until her intelligence unit intervened. Her phone buzzed again, this time a number she recognized all too well. Excuse me, she whispered to Helen, slipping out the side door. The corridor was empty, rain streaming down tall windows. She answered on the second ring. Hayes. Sophia. Director William Dalton's voice was grave. I know you're at your brother's ceremony, but we have a situation. Sir? Someone leaked details about Blackwater to the press. Nothing classified yet, but they're sniffing around the edges. The secretary wants a full brief Monday. Her stomach clenched. How much do they know? Enough to be dangerous. Not enough to understand what you prevented. A pause. I'm sorry about the timing, but I need you to know, if this goes public, we'll protect your identity at all costs. My identity isn't what matters, sir. It matters to me. His tone softened. What you did in Kandahar, the risks you took to get that intel to the ground teams. Your brother's unit wouldn't have made it out without you. Through the door's window, She could see the ceremony beginning, General Morrison taking the podium. "I should go, sir." "Sophia." He rarely used her first name. "I know your family doesn't understand what you've sacrificed, but there are those of us who do. Remember that." The line went dead. Sophia leaned against the cool wall, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. 15 years of service. 15 years of letting her family believe she was a paper pusher while she coordinated intelligence operations that shaped national security. 15 years of spending holidays alone because she was deployed to places that didn't officially exist. "Ma'am?" A young sergeant appeared in the hallway. "The ceremony's started. You might want to—" He stopped, his eyes widening as they fell on something behind her. Sophia turned to see Admiral Chen approaching. "Rear Admiral Hayes," Chen said quietly, and the sergeant snapped to attention. "I didn't expect to see you here. My brother is receiving a decoration." "Admiral." "Of course. The Kandahar operation." Chen's expression was knowing. "Outstanding work all around. On the ground and elsewhere." The sergeant looked between them, confusion evident. Sophia could almost see his mental gears turning. Rear Admiral? The woman in the plain black dress? "If you'll excuse me," Sophia said, "I should return to my seat." "Of course." Chen stepped aside. "Oh, and Sophia? The director asked me to tell you he's planning to attend. He should arrive shortly." Sophia's blood ran cold. William Dalton never attended public ceremonies. His presence here meant something had shifted, something beyond a mere press leak. She slipped back into the auditorium just as General Morrison called Ethan's name. Her family erupted in applause, her mother dabbing at tears. Sophia clapped quietly from her corner, watching her brother stride across the stage with the confidence of a man who'd never questioned his place in the world. If only he knew that the desk jockey sister he dismissed had been the guardian angel he never saw coming. Chapter 3. The Reckoning. For extraordinary heroism in connection with military operations against an armed enemy, General Morrison's voice resonated through the auditorium as he read Ethan's citation. Sophia knew every word. She'd read the classified version, the one that detailed how close they'd come to disaster. Her phone vibrated insistently. 3 messages in rapid succession. Never a good sign. When insurgent forces ambushed his convoy, Captain Hayes displayed exceptional courage under fire. Sophia's eyes flicked to the main entrance as 2 men in dark suits entered, scanning the crowd. Secret Service. Her pulse quickened. Despite being outnumbered 3-1, Captain Hayes coordinated a defensive position that saved the lives of 15 soldiers. The side door opened. Director William Dalton stepped through, his presence commanding despite his deliberate attempt to remain unnoticed. But Sophia noticed. She always noticed. More concerning were the 4 CIA security officers who followed him in. This wasn't a social visit. "Mom," she whispered, leaning forward to tap her mother's shoulder. "I need to—" "Shh." Patricia waved her off without turning. "This is the important part." On stage, General Morrison continued, "His actions that day represent the finest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army." The applause was thunderous. Ethan saluted crisply as Morrison pinned the medal to his chest. Cameras flashed. Their father stood, tears streaming down his weathered face. And in that moment of triumph, Director Dalton began walking down the side aisle. Sophia's throat constricted. She recognized his expression. She'd seen it in secure facilities around the world when operations went sideways, when hard truths needed telling. "However," General Morrison's voice cut through the celebration, and the crowd quieted. "There is one more matter to address tonight, one that speaks to the often unseen nature of modern warfare." Ethan looked confused. This wasn't in the program. "Director Dalton?" Morrison stepped aside. "The floor is yours." The silence was absolute. Every military member in the room knew who William Dalton was, even if they'd never seen his face. The director of the Central Intelligence Agency didn't make public appearances. He certainly didn't interrupt military ceremonies. "Thank you, General," Dalton's voice carried despite its soft tone. "I apologize for the interruption, but sometimes recognition comes too late if we wait for the proper channels." Sophia's hands trembled. She pressed them flat against her thighs. 6 weeks ago, Dalton continued, Captain Hayes and his unit were saved by intelligence that arrived just minutes before what would have been a catastrophic ambush. Intelligence that identified 16 IED locations, 2 sniper positions, and a coordinated attack involving over 50 insurgents. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. This wasn't public information. That intelligence didn't come from satellites or signal intercepts. It came from a human source, an officer who spent 3 months undercover in Kandahar, living among the enemy, gathering the pieces that would save American lives. Sophia's mother turned in her seat, finally looking back at her daughter. Their eyes met, and Patricia's brow furrowed in confusion. That officer exfiltrated under fire, transmitted the intelligence while wounded, and ensured it reached our ground forces with minutes to spare. Dalton paused, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on Sophia's corner. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here tonight to acknowledge someone whose service has been classified for too long, someone whose sacrifice has gone unrecognized by even her own family. Every head in the room began turning, following his line of sight. Rear Admiral Sophia Hayes, Dalton said clearly. Would you please come forward? The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sophia felt hundreds of eyes find her. Her mother's gasp was audible even from 2 rows away. Her father half stood, his face a mask of incomprehension. On stage, Ethan's expression cycled through confusion, disbelief, and something approaching shock. Sophia remained frozen for a heartbeat. Then 2. A lifetime of operational security screamed at her to stay seated, to maintain cover. But Director Dalton's eyes held a different message. It's time. She stood slowly, her simple black dress a stark contrast to the formal uniforms around her. The walk to the front felt endless, each step echoing in the silent auditorium. She passed her family's row, saw Marcus's slack jaw, her aunt's bewilderment, her father's stunned recognition as pieces fell into place. As she climbed the steps to the stage, Dalton did something that stopped every heart in the room. He saluted her. The director of the CIA, a civilian who answered only to the president, rendered a perfect military salute to the woman everyone had dismissed as a paper pusher. Rear Admiral Hayes, he said, his voice carrying to every corner. On behalf of a grateful nation, and as someone who has had the privilege of watching you save countless American lives from the shadows, I thank you for your service. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Then, from somewhere in the crowd of military officers, came the sharp sound of a single person clapping, then another, and another, until the entire auditorium erupted in a standing ovation that shook the walls. Chapter 4. After the storm. The reception hall felt different now. The same crystal chandeliers cast the same warm light, but Sophia stood at its center rather than its edges. A cluster of senior officers surrounded her, each wanting to hear about operations they'd only seen the results of. Operation Blackwater was yours? Colonel Martinez shook his head in amazement. We always wondered how intel that precise came through. The detail was extraordinary. I had good assets, Sophia deflected, uncomfortable with the attention, and an excellent support team at Langley. Across the room, her family stood frozen in a tableau of shock. Her mother clutched her father's arm, mascara streaking her cheeks. Ethan remained on stage, his new medal forgotten as he stared at his sister, really seeing her for the first time. Rear Admiral. Helen Morrison appeared at her elbow, eyes twinkling. I believe I owe you an apology. I asked if you had family serving, never realizing I was sitting next to a legend. I'm not a... You are. Director Dalton materialized beside them, his security detail maintaining a discreet perimeter. Mrs. Morrison, your husband has been trying to convince Rear Admiral Hayes to accept public recognition for years. Perhaps you'll have better luck. Helen smiled. My dear, false modesty doesn't suit someone who single-handedly dismantled 3 terror cells. It wasn't single-handed. Sophia? She turned to find Ethan behind her, his face pale beneath his tan. Up close, she could see his hands shaking. Ethan. She nodded to the others. If you'll excuse us? They dispersed tactfully, leaving the siblings in a pocket of relative privacy. Kandahar, he said roughly. That intel? That was you? Among other things. The sniper positions. We were walking right into them. Jenkins had his son's photo out, was showing everyone. His voice cracked. We would have died, all of us. But you didn't. Because of you. The words came out accusatory, confused, grateful, and guilty all at once. How long? 15 years. 15. He ran a hand through his regulation haircut. All those missed holidays. All those times you couldn't explain where you'd been. We thought, I know what you thought. She kept her voice gentle. It was necessary. Mom called you a paper pusher. His face crumbled. God, Sophie, I told people my sister had a desk job. I was embarrassed that you weren't a real soldier? She touched his arm. Ethan, what you do takes incredible courage. Running toward gunfire, leading men in combat. I could never do that. But what you do is different. Not better, not worse. Different. She squeezed his shoulder. We both serve, just in different shadows. Their parents approached hesitantly, their father moving with the careful gait of a man whose world had fundamentally shifted. Sophia. Her mother's voice was barely a whisper. Rear Admiral? For about 3 years now. But you never corrected us. Operational security isn't optional, Mom. Even with family. Especially with family. Her father stood straighter, and she saw him seeing her. Not as his disappointing daughter who'd chosen intelligence over infantry, but as a fellow officer who'd sacrificed in ways he was only beginning to understand. Then, in front of the entire room, Colonel James Hayes, Retire, did something he'd never done before. He saluted his daughter. Rear Admiral Hayes, he said formally, his voice thick with emotion. It would be my honor to render appropriate respect to a superior officer. Sophia's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. Dad, you don't have to. I do. He held the salute until she returned it, then pulled her into an embrace that smelled of Old Spice and starch and home. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so damn sorry. The rain had stopped. Through the tall windows, stars emerged between breaking clouds. Somewhere in Langley, analysts were already working on the next threat, the next shadow that needed navigating. Tomorrow, Sophia would return to that world, to the secrets and sacrifices that came with protecting what mattered. But tonight, for the first time in 15 years, she stood in the light. Hey, Sophie? Ethan's voice was rough with emotion. That defensive position I set up, the one they're giving me this medal for. In your intel, you suggested that exact location, didn't you? She smiled, the operational details already classified in her mind. You executed it perfectly. That's what matters. No, he said firmly, loudly enough for everyone nearby to hear. What matters is that my sister is a hero, and it's about damn time everyone knew it. The second standing ovation of the night was smaller, but no less heartfelt. It came from a family finally understanding that love sometimes wears the disguise of silence, that service takes many forms, and that the greatest sacrifices are often the ones that go unseen, until they don't. Director Dalton appeared at her shoulder one last time as the evening wound down. The press secretary will want to coordinate on the Blackwater story. We can still minimize your exposure if you prefer. Sophia looked at her family, her mother showing photos of her to other military wives with newfound pride. Her father deep in conversation with Admiral Chen about intelligence operations, Ethan telling anyone who would listen about his badass sister who saved his unit. No more shadows, she said quietly. At least not about this. Dalton smiled, a rare sight. Welcome to the light, Rear Admiral. Try not to find it too boring. As her family surrounded her with questions and apologies and 15 years of overdue recognition, Sophia Hayes allowed herself one moment of pure satisfaction. She'd spent her career protecting others from dangers they'd never see. Tonight, finally, they saw her too, and that made every sacrifice worth it. 6 months later, Sophia stood in her Arlington office, morning sun streaming through bulletproof glass. The walls, once bare by necessity, now held commendations she'd been permitted to display. Her naval intelligence insignia caught the light, no longer hidden in a drawer. Ma'am? Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez knocked on her doorframe. Your 0900 is here, and you have a personal visitor in the lobby. Sophia glanced at her schedule. The Joint Task Force briefing wasn't until 9. Personal visitor? Your brother, Admiral. Should I send him up? She saved her work on the Lebanon situation. Some things hadn't changed. The threats were still real, still constant. Only now she faced them without the burden of a double life. Ethan appeared minutes later, still favoring his left leg from a training injury. He'd been promoted to major last month, and Sophia had been there to pin on his oak leaves, publicly, proudly. Sorry to drop by unannounced. He settled into the chair across from her desk, taking in the organized chaos of intelligence work. Mom wanted me to confirm you're coming to dinner Sunday. Wouldn't miss it. She poured 2 cups of coffee from the pot that was always brewing. Though I might be late, we have a situation developing in... Classified, I know. He grinned. Still getting used to my sister outranking me. You'll make colonel soon enough. Maybe. His expression grew serious. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. I've been recommended for a position with JSOC, Intelligence Liaison. Sophia set down her cup carefully. Joint Special Operations Command, where operational planning and intelligence merged. That's excellent, Ethan. The thing is, he shifted uncomfortably, they want me partly because of you, because of our connection. They think having a Hayes on both sides would strengthen the relationship between ops and intel. And you're worried you didn't earn it on your own merit. Did I? Sophia leaned back, studying her brother. The past 6 months had changed him too. The easy arrogance was gone, replaced by something more thoughtful. Do you know why my intelligence from Kandahar was so precise? she asked. He shook his head. Because I spent 3 years studying every after-action report from infantry units, learning how ground forces think, move, react, including yours. She met his eyes. Your tactical assessments were some of the best I read. Clear, detailed, honest about mistakes. That's rare. You read my reports? Everyone. Just like I watched every commendation, every promotion, every milestone. She smiled sadly. Just because I couldn't tell you doesn't mean I wasn't proud of you. Her secure phone buzzed. She glanced at the caller ID and her expression tightened. I need to take this, she said apologetically. Ethan stood. Duty calls. But Sophie, if I take this position, I want to earn it. Really earn it. You already have. As he left, she answered the phone. Hayes? Sophia? We have a problem. Director Dalton's voice was grim. Moscow station just went dark. I need you wheels up in 30. The familiar adrenaline surged. Sir, my task force briefing. Rodriguez can handle it. This is priority 1. And Sophia, I'm sending you with a ground team this time. No more solo operations. Understood. She was already pulling her go-bag from the closet. Who's leading the tactical element? Major Ethan Hayes. She froze. Sir? He doesn't know yet. I'm calling him next. Dalton paused. I know it's irregular, but you two have complementary skill sets. And after Kandahar, we know you can keep each other alive. Your cover's blown anyway. Might as well use it to our advantage. His tone softened slightly. The committee approved it, Sophia. Unanimously. They want the Hayes siblings working together. After he hung up, Sophia stood for a moment in her sunlit office. 6 months ago, she'd been a ghost, saving lives from shadows while her family dismissed her service. Now, she was about to deploy alongside the brother she'd protected from afar. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Just got the call. Moscow? You and me? She typed back. Looks like you got that joint operations position after all. Mom's going to freak. Mom's going to have to wait for that Sunday dinner. Together this time? Sophia grabbed her bag and headed for the door, passing the wall of commendations that told only part of her story. The rest was still being written, still being lived in conference rooms and foreign capitals, and the spaces between what could be said and what had to be done. Together, she confirmed. As she strode through Langley's halls, officers nodding respectfully as she passed, Sophia realized the truth. Stepping into the light hadn't ended her service. It had simply transformed it. She was still protecting those who couldn't see the danger coming. Now, she just didn't have to do it alone. The helicopter was already warming up when she reached the helipad. In the distance, she could see another figure jogging toward them. Ethan, his own go-bag over his shoulder. They met at the aircraft's door. He snapped a crisp salute, which she returned with equal precision. Ready for this, Admiral? He shouted over the rotor noise. Are you, Major? He grinned, that same cocky smile from childhood, tempered now with respect and understanding. Hayes and Hayes, saving the world? Someone has to, she replied, climbing aboard. As the helicopter lifted off, carrying them toward whatever waited in Moscow, Sophia allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. She'd spent years as a guardian angel, invisible and unacknowledged. Now she was something more, a sister, a leader, and a protector who no longer had to hide her strength. The shadows still called, but this time, she wouldn't answer alone.